In any case, it was a patriarchal society. But the Prophet salallahu alayhi wasallam, in his private life, is surrounded by women from the beginning to the end. And maybe that's not the right word. The Prophet was attended to by women throughout his life. And he took counsel from women throughout his life. And his companions did the same thing. Umar, who sort of gets the rap when we talk about gender, he did that too. He did that too. He took counsel from women. He went to women for the interpretation of dreams. But, of course, the Prophet's life, in his early life, Ayman, Barakah, is no doubt one of the principal women. She is the handmaid of his mother, who is with him from the time of his birth beyond his death. All of his life, Ayman was with him. And that's why we know a lot of things about the childhood of the Prophet, by the way. Halima told us many things, and Ayman knew the whole story. And she is the one who cried when the Prophet died, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And when they asked her why she was crying, of course she'd known him all of her life. She'd seen him born. Her answer was what?
Revelation.
Yeah, because the revelation had been cut off. That was her answer. That I'm not crying for that reason, but because the revelation has now ceased. But Ayman was with the Prophet at all times, and towards the end of his life in Medina, the Prophet would go with Abu Bakr and Umar to visit her, and he would go with others as well, and he would just stare at Ayman, and he loved her, and he would say, "This is the last remnant of my house." So he held her very high, and she was very close to him throughout her life. Then, of course, you have also the fact that, as Karen Armstrong says, I hope this is not sacrilegious, but she said, Islam began in the arms of a woman. And she means by that, of course, Khadija. Khadija is absolutely central to the story. And this is not coincidental. And if anything indicates the importance of woman and the stature of women, it should be that. Because this was the divine plan. That a man whom we believe was perfect in every way, and who needed to be complemented by no human being, is nevertheless put in a historical situation with a perfect woman, Khadija. And Khadija is his strength and his fortitude. And throughout most of that Meccan period, until her death in the year of sadness, Khadija is always there with the Prophet. And the passing of Khadija, radiallahu anha, was one of the major catastrophes that the Prophet faced. That was much more than the boycott. That was much bigger, perhaps even than the loss of his uncle. So Khadija is really important. And that is the image of the perfect marriage. It is the image of the way that husband and wife should stand together and protect each other and help each other and counsel each other. And Karen Armstrong says that Islam began in the arms of the woman. And again, when the revelation came, this cataclysmic event that shook the Prophet to the very essence of his core, then he goes to Khadija, and she does. She wraps him, and she consoles him, and she knows with her intellect that this is right, and this is truth, and you are a good man. And what can you say beyond that? I mean, this is not only a beautiful story, but it also is an indication of the primacy of women. The aunts of the Prophet's household. This is an incredible story in the seerah. The Prophet's aunts, Fadl and Arwa and others of his aunts. I mean, they are the amazing figures in the story of the Prophet's biography. Safiya, who was the wife, the sister of Hamza, al-Fadl, the mother of Abbas, Maymuna, Salma, Asma, and Arwa, and others. All of them stood by the Prophet. All of them defended the Prophet. How was Abu Lahab killed? al-Fadl, right? That when he heard the news of Badr and he was upset, al-Fadl was in Mecca with him, and Abu Lahab made certain statements, and she hit him over the head with a club, with a stick, and the wound festered and he died from that. That's al-Fadl. And Arwa, his aunt, her son was Tulayb, and he would tell her that you should embrace Islam, you should come to the religion of the Prophet. And then when he embraced Islam, Arwa came into Islam, and she used to say before she embraced Islam that if we women were men, no one would dare to dishonor your nephew. That we would protect the Prophet, we would stand by him. And as soon as she became a Muslim, Arwa went to Abu Lahab and she gave him her mind. She spoke out in defense of the Prophet. Of course, Aisha is a remarkable example of that. One of the most intelligent women and perceptive women. Remarkable mind. A woman who, whenever she was asked a question that she didn't know, would research it until she learned it. Of whom the Prophet said, take half of your religion from this lady. And she mastered the sciences of her time. She was a sea of knowledge, and she is in many ways the heiress of that tradition that we'll look at later, of women of knowledge. In the school of Medina, she even raised the children and instructed the children that later on became known as the 7 fuqaha, who became the teachers of Imam Malik and the Medinan school. So she's absolutely central in that. Of course, there is Asma, her sister, Dhatun Nitaqain, the woman with the 2 belts, the 2 girders. And of course, she was a great woman. She was extremely intelligent. She lived to an old age. She never lost her teeth. She remained beautiful. They were all very beautiful. The women of Quraysh, as a rule, were beautiful women. She never lost her teeth. She never lost her intellect, which is much more important than that. They mention both things in the biographies. And she transmitted hadith. And of course, this is the young lady who would take food and provisions up to the Prophet on the mountain and to her father Abu Bakr when they were in the cave. Again, women are not prominent in the seerah. I mean, what prominence is greater than this? What courage is greater than that? Zainab bint Jahsh, there are a lot of examples. This is one of the wives of the Prophet. Zainab bint Jahsh, who loved Aisha. She had a very close relationship with Aisha. She was a creative woman, a woman of great energy, and she would gather skins and she would tan them and she would dye them and she would make beautiful clothing and pillows and artifacts, and she would take them to the marketplace and sell them. And she earned money for the household of the Prophet, and she would give that in charity, and she would also help to support the family. And then, of course, you have others, but we'll just take Salama, who is the Prophet's wife, as you all know. And what prominence is greater than hers? This is the wife that was with the Prophet at Hudaibiya. And as you know, the Prophet now is strong, and he is in a position strategically where if he wanted, no one could keep him out of Mecca. It's not proper that he be kept out of Mecca. He has moral force to go in. He has military force to go in. The bay'ah of contentment, the oath of allegiance, of contentment was taken under the tree. And then, of course, they had the Treaty of Hudaibiya, in which the Prophet salallahu alayhi wasallam makes this incredible agreement with Quraysh, which appears to be a humiliating capitulation, and which is in fact the great victory, the greatest victory of all, that will bring in Quraysh into the fold of Islam. And yet, the shock of that was so great that the companions didn't know what to do. They couldn't say anything. They couldn't move. A lot of them just sat there. They didn't know what to do. And when the Prophet told them to go ahead and to sacrifice their sacrificial animals, which ordinarily they would do after completing the rites, they didn't do anything. And the Prophet went in and he complained to Salama, and she told him in other words that, this is a cataclysmic thing. What you have required of them is beyond capacity. So what do? Just shave your own head and sacrifice your own animal. That was her counsel. That was the counsel of Salama. And the Prophet went out, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He shaved his head, he sacrificed his ritual animal, and then it was as if this huge burden were taken off the shoulders of the companions. And some of them shaved their heads, others of them cut their hair, and they sacrificed their animals, and the spirit utterly changed. Taking counsel of wise women, here I wanted to speak about Khadija. We spoke about her before. We spoke about Salama. Ash-Shifa, who is mentioned here, she is very famous in the seerah. She was noted for her sharp intellect, her excellence of character, her soundness of opinion. Her name was Ash-Shifa bint Abdullah ibn Abd Shams. She was a woman of Quraysh. She's the one who taught Ruqayya and Hafsa to write, and she taught other arts and crafts. The Prophet used to visit her and take his noon nap in her house, although she's not directly related to him. Umar would always ask her counsel. And if you look at the example of Umar, he perhaps never goes against the counsel of Shifa. His policy, his brilliant policy, right down to the last letter, is usually consistent with the counsel that Shifa bint Abdullah gave him. She was also the woman who in Medina was put in charge of what? The marketplace. You probably all heard that, right? That there was a woman in charge of the market. What does that tell you about economics and about the right of women to work? And Shifa was in charge of the marketplace in Medina. Asma bint Umays, this is a woman who also had a position as a wise counselor, a woman of great foresight and interpreter of dreams, so that Umar would go to her for counsel, and Umar would also go to her for his dreams. The Prophet ﷺ didn't need anyone to interpret his, but that's one of the things that she did. We talked about Hudaibiya. Fatima bint Qais. There are lots of Fatimas. There's Fatima az-Zahra, the Great. There's Fatima, the sister of Umar. There's Fatima bint Qais al-Fihriya. This was a woman who was prominent among the companions. She was a woman of intellect. She was regarded by the companions to be a perfect woman in every way. The companions called her Najud, a woman who comes to your rescue. She was always ready to help, and it was in her house that the Shura was held after the death of Umar. She is a very famous woman. There were other women that were women of trust, like Hafsa, who took the Quran. Women were active in work.